Royal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to participate in this rather bittersweet retrospective, and I want to commend my colleagues on all sides of the House for their reflective and indeed moving comments. I recall fondly my first ever visit to and encounter with this House. It was in 1951. I was 11 years old, and my late father took me here to visit the House of Commons, looked up at the House and said, "Son, this is the Parliament of Canada. This is Vox Populi, the voice of the people." Today, such sentiments might invite a certain cynical rejoinder, particularly as one observes the sometimes cacophony of question period or the toxicity in the political arena. Certainly, unfortunately, I still retain that great respect and reverence for this institution, which I regard as the centerpiece of our democracy, the cradle, the nurturer for the pursuit of justice. And in this, I'm reminded and indeed inspired by another set of teachings on the pursuit of justice from my late parents of blessed memory. For it is my father who taught me before I could understand the profundity of his words. That, as he put it, the pursuit of justice is equal to all the other commandments combined. This, as he said, you must teach unto your children. But it was my mother who, when she heard my father say this, would say to me, if you want to pursue justice, you have to understand, you have to feel the injustice about you. You have to go in and about your community and beyond and feel the injustice and combat the injustice. Otherwise, the pursuit of justice remains a theoretical construct. As a result of my parents' teachings, I got involved in the two great human rights struggles of the second half of the 20th century. The struggle for human rights in the former Soviet Union and the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, and got involved with those who were the face and voices of those struggles in the defense of the political prisoners Anatoly Sharansky in the former Soviet Union and Nelson Mandela in South Africa. I also got involved in the struggle for peace in the Middle East because, as my mother, an authentic peace advocate, would say, the struggle for peace is bound up with the pursuit of justice. That same teaching about justice also underpinned my work as Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, as well as my work as an MP. Indeed, when I was first sworn in as Minister, I said at the time that I would be guided in my work by one overarching principle, the pursuit of justice, and I had my father's teaching in my mind. And within that, I said, the promotion and protection of equality not just as a centerpiece of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but equality as an organizing principle for the building of a just society, and the promotion and protection of human dignity for the building of a society that was not only just, but one that was also compassionate and humane.
I was guided by these principles for more than 16 years as a member in Montreal, a wonderful riding that I represented and where I've lived for over 60 years.
And it's been a privilege and pleasure to represent my constituents while engaged in the multi-layered, multifaceted role and responsibilities of an MP, including, as we appreciate, first, the MP as ombudsperson for individuals and groups in the riding, petitioning government and parliament for redress of grievance on behalf of constituents. In that regard, I've been the beneficiary of a wonderful set of assistants in the riding, including my first head, Sabina Schmidman, Louise O'Neill, Diane Dusablon, Isabel Casanova, and Howard Liebman, a former law student of mine who headed up my office for close to 12 years. All of them have served the people of Mount Royal, and I would say even beyond, with understanding, empathy, and wisdom, and in the process have transformed the lives of people in the riding and beyond. Second, the MP is representative of riding-wide concerns, and here I've been engaged in the whole gamut of cross-cutting concerns which reflect my riding on the domestic front: health, environment, childcare, anti-poverty, veteran affairs, et le devoir de mémoire, the recognition and respect for our heritage. And on the international front, in the pursuit of a humanitarian and human rights-based foreign policy, in particular, among others, the responsibility to protect, la responsabilité de protéger.
The responsibility to protect.
Maker and legislator. Here I was pleased as Minister of Justice to introduce Canada's first ever law against human trafficking, the contemporary global slave trade, to craft a Civil Marriage Act anchored in two fundamental principles, the equality principle and freedom of religion, to initiate with the assistance of colleagues from all parties on the Justice Committee, including the member for Central Nova, now the Minister of Justice, Canada's first ever inclusive, representative, transparent and accountable appointment process for the Supreme Court, which led to the most gender equitable Supreme Court in the world, and the appointment of first ever Aboriginal and visible minority persons to appellate courts, and to review and participate in the reversal of wrongful convictions. As an MP, and again with all-party cooperation, I was able to shepherd through the House Canada's first ever War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity Act, and ultimately as Minister, end up initiating the first ever prosecution under that Act. And as an opposition MP, as we have all done, I have sought to make use of the parliamentary instruments at our disposal, such as private members' bills, motions, petitions, order paper questions, and the like, to help advance the public good. Which leads me to the other several roles of the MP. The MP as overseer, reflecting our responsibility as representatives of the public trust and overseers of the public purse to help secure the public good. The MP as public advocate, taking up cases and causes and bringing them to the attention of Parliament, the government and the people of Canada. For example, to stand in solidarity with political prisoners, to let them know that they are not alone, that we will never relent in our advocacy until we secure their freedom. The MP is communicator, participating in press briefings and engaging with constituents, stakeholders, NGOs and civil society generally. The MP is educator, as when we meet with students from our riding and other ridings and find that we end up learning from these students and they become our teachers. And the MP is global ambassador for Canada in our international representations and delegations. In all of those capacities, I have found that some of our most important and impactful work is the result of cross-party collaboration and cooperation. It has been my pleasure to work with colleagues from all parties, in this chamber and in the Senate, on matters such as advocating for the release of political prisoners and holdings. We did recently human rights violators to account, notably during our annual Iran Accountability Week. In particular, I must highlight the cooperative and constructive work of the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee for International Human Rights, which operates almost exclusively by consensus. And I trust that my colleagues on that subcommittee will continue that work in the same collegial and serious manner after the next election. Of course, none of this parliamentary work would have been possible without the commitment and care of those who headed up and guided my parliamentary office: Judith Abitan, Michael Malek, David Grossman, Jacob Binder, Matt Biederman, as well as Charles Feldman, who headed up my office for 7 years and whose expertise became indispensable not only to my work but to the effective functioning of Parliament as a whole. Moreover, as Minister, I was privileged to work with exemplary senior officials and civil servants in the Department of Justice, too numerous to mention. As well, we've all been the beneficiaries of the professional and personable House of Commons personnel, from security guards to technical staff to pages to legislative drafters to House and committee clerks. In particular, I must also thank our own party leader, the inspiring Justin Trudeau. I also thank the staff and our party leader's office, our House leader Dominique Leblanc with his irrepressible sense of humour, our exemplary whip Judy Foote, all the people in the House leader and whip's office, and indeed commend them all for their support, flexibility, patience and good humour, particularly when I'm not always on side. And as well, my wonderful caucus colleagues. Finally, a word about family, and with this I close, who are first in my heart and mind. I began by speaking about my parents, and I will conclude about speaking about the care and contribution and commitment of my wife, Ariella, who's in the chamber this evening, and who has been in the political trenches with me all these years, though admittedly sometimes not on the same side. My children, Michal, Gila, Tanya, and Yoni, who've been the source of many a humbling and healthy repast. My grandchildren, who seem to have inherited that same quality with an even more mocking humor. And my children's spouses. I thank them all for their support and their love, They certainly have mine in return. Mr. Speaker, for me, Parliament is not just a place where I went to work. It has been my home. My colleagues have become my family. It has been a privilege to serve in this chamber, to serve alongside all of you, to serve the people of Mount Royal, and to help in the best way I can to advance the cause of justice for all. Thank you.
Resuming debate, the honourable member.